He let out a smirk when the words left his mouth. Arrogance clung to him like a scent, dripping from his lips like venom. His tie still hung loosely from lunch, his teeth flashing with the smug confidence of a man convinced he could never be touched. I locked eyes with him, gave a single nod, and pressed delete. Line after line disappeared. 2 years of sleepless nights, raw fingertips, and uncredited brilliance wiped away in silence. His grin only grew wider. What he didn't realize was that I had already made my move. While he strutted off for lunch, I ignored the sandwich on my desk. Instead, I walked past the rows of empty chairs, through the glass doors, and straight into the CFO's office. 10 minutes. That's all it took to tilt the empire he thought was built solely on his name. By the time he returned, she was already waiting. The room was heavy, suffocating in its stillness. The kind of silence you don't just hear, you feel deep in your bones. Then her voice sliced through it, low and sharp. "The bank just called. Tell me exactly what instructions you gave her." He froze, and I let the moment wash over me. How we had ended up here. How I had let him get close enough to wound me. And how, in the end, I sharpened the very knife he thought I would never use. We first crossed paths 3 years earlier, right after I finished grad school. I was still green then, naive enough to put faith in handshakes and the promise of partnership. He seemed like everything I wanted to become: charismatic, decisive, commanding, the kind of man who could step into a room and make it bend to his presence. He pulled me under his wing. Nights spent burning the midnight oil, secretive strategy talks over whiskey in dim-lit offices. He made me feel handpicked, vital, as if we were shaping something together. But partnerships have a way of showing their cracks. His smile lingered too long when basking in credit that wasn't his. His compliments always carried invisible strings I didn't recognize at the time. Piece by piece, my name faded from the decks, from the pitches, from the contracts. The first betrayal was almost invisible. My presentation delivered from his lips, my research wrapped in his voice. He called it collaboration. I called it loyalty. The second cut deeper. A client handshake sealed under his name, while my code hummed silently in the background. He promised recognition, but he kept the reward for himself. And the third, well, that shattered every illusion I'd clung to. An email left open on his computer screen, my name stripped from the patent application, my work reassigned beneath his own. And a note to legal: she won't find out until it's too late. Too late. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in my apartment with the city buzzing beneath my window, and I sketched out the blueprint of his collapse. The first move was patience. I duplicated every file, every snippet of code, every draft he assumed belonged to him. Not onto my laptop. That would have been careless. I tucked everything into a private repository under a name he would never suspect. The second move was quiet. I kept my head down, kept working, laughed at his jokes, nodded in meetings. He believed I'd been broken down and molded into something pliable. In truth, my silence was the blade I sharpened. The third move was leverage. I followed the money streams he boasted about, but never truly comprehended. I tore through expense reports, cross-checked them against bank statements, and exposed the fractures. He had been siphoning company funds through phantom vendors. By the time I walked into the CFO's office, I hadn't brought merely proof. I'd brought a damning, tightly edited narrative. Theft, manipulation, and fraud, all with receipts. So when he leaned over my desk today and hissed, "Delete all code and files from your laptop. All your work belongs to my company now," I felt a private smile. He thought he'd handed me checkmate. He didn't see that I'd already overturned the board. The CFO's voice was a slab of ice. The bank just called. His throat moved, but nothing came out. For once, the man who filled every lull with smooth talk was speechless. "Tell me," she pressed, narrowing her eyes, "exactly what you instructed her to do." I stood behind her, unseen by most, not unnoticed. His gaze flicked to me, hunting for an ally or an escape. He found only the composed stillness of someone who had already buried him. He babbled, lied, tried to shift blame. Each attempt only cinched the noose tighter. The CFO slid the documents across the desk. My files, his forged invoices, the mismatches he'd hoped remained hidden. And then there was my code, signed and timestamped, my name embedded in every line. A digital fingerprint he could never scrub away. His color drained, the smirk evaporated. The empire he'd built on theft crumbled, not amid drama or chaos, but under the weight of quiet facts. The climax arrived without theatrics. No raised voices, no slamming doors, just the CFO's verdict. You're suspended, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. The words landed with finality. He looked at me then, not as a protege, not as a partner, but as the executioner I'd become. His lips parted, but I refused him the courtesy of attention. I left the office before security reached me. Now, hours later, I replay every moment. His sneer, his arrogance, his fall. I never needed to shout. I never had to destroy myself to destroy him. All it took was patience, meticulousness, and the resolve to let him craft his own noose while I tightened the knot. He assumed betrayal had weakened me. Instead, it made me lethal. And the hush that settled after his ruin, that was my justice.